Hey everyone, so for today we've got a more serious topic to be talking about that's been going on in our community. So basically this is about the method situation. Now, it's almost like a situation of where to start in this one. So essentially, one of Method's players, Josh, who was a streamer, then got banned from Twitch, but did stay in the Method roster, has had serious accusations leveled at him. And it does seem like those are things that Method, at least leadership, knew about in the past. As an example, according to Slasher, who is an esports journalist, multiple former Blizzard employees actually reached out to him to say that Method leadership were actually aware of some of the situation, like quite a bit of time ago. Now, in terms of what's being leveled at Josh, in terms of the accusations, basically it's rape and pedophilia, like grooming, I guess. So that's what's being leveled at him there. Now, there was a police investigation that was done, but according to the person who is one of the victims, that report went nowhere because there was not enough evidence to prove or disprove that anything happened, and you basically need like super firm video evidence. So I'm assuming then like a rape kit didn't happen soon enough or something like that. But basically, you had a situation where one of Method's players, their healer, Josh, who was also a Twitch streamer, where there was serious accusations being leveled against him that the organization supposedly were actually aware of quite significantly in the past, but basically didn't really do anything about. Now, I think the thing here is that no matter what goes on with Josh, so even if he was, and it does seem unlikely, but even if he was completely exonerated, I think the point would be that Method actually did not operate properly, because while that police report, investigation was going on and he was off Twitch, he was in their roster, right? I believe he was like actually at that event for the Race to World First. Ashara, and as an example, Preach was casting that, and I believe his kids were around. Now, given some of the allegations against Josh, that's obviously a pretty insane situation. Now, what should obviously happen in a situation like that is, as soon as you get wind of those things being said, what you've got to do basically is put the person on administrative leave, a suspension, until you work out what is actually going on. So I think the point there is no matter what actually is or is not true with the Josh accusations, the fact that they existed and Method pretty much brushed them under the rug and did not put him on, in a state of suspension until they knew exactly what was going on. Basically, that they did not do that is a complete failure of leadership on their part. And that is something that has led to essentially an exodus. So Corsair have dropped them as a sponsor. Dari, who I believe joined years ago for social media and then was their general manager, she has left as well. Don't know what's going on with Sko, and as for the other co-founder, well, there's a situation there as well, and he is currently on, unpaid administrative leave. So basically booted out until they kind of know what to do with him. And that is overall that situation, and basically it's a situation that is... I think there's a bit of it that's important for us to talk about because, look, with Method Josh, he was somebody who initially presented as an entertaining edgelord streamer, right? And, he ended up having highlights channels made. I think some of the Reddits for laughing at Twitch people went pretty big with him. His highlights did pretty decent on YouTube. So he kind of grew as this, one of the more ironic sort of, basically the whole thing seems to have been sort of incel humor, irony sort of stuff, right? That seemed to be the shtick. But, it seems like, sort of in the worst case, that shtick was actually masking or was maybe just a total part of what he was doing. That was, super obviously, extremely a problem. So yes, I think there's 4 current accusers. One of them is rape, and the others are of grooming when they were underage. So that is what is basically that's what is being leveled at Josh. And the main point here is that I think no matter, my personal opinion is that Josh is obviously some sort of total scumbag, right, when it comes to that. And there's sort of a situation then where like with the rape case as an example, it's just that thing where from the legal perspective in the UK, the prosecution rate, etc., is actually quite low. So we're essentially, I'd say, never going to get some sort of firm conclusion on that. Now, that said, there are screenshots about the, the pedophilia stuff or the grooming stuff, I suppose. So perhaps that is something that, could be verified, and then there could be some sort of legal action or something like that. But yeah, no matter what the situation is with Josh, I think the absolute, complete, undisputed thing is that those things are floating around, that it very much seems like Method leadership did know that those accusations were floating around, and they did not put that player on some sort of administrative leave or suspension or something like that. As for why, who the hell knows? I mean, there's got to be a lot more healers out there. Surely they didn't just not want to disrupt their raid roster before RWF. So yeah, that's what's went on there. I think for the future of Method as an organization, it looks pretty darn grim. I suppose a part of that is we got to mention the Sasha stuff. So it's Annie Fuchsia, so Annie and another streamer, Sweebliss, basically, they basically are accusing Sasha of being pushy and improper. Now, I don't believe there's anything there that's like a form of assault or anything like that, but essentially being the co-CEO of Method, somebody who's in a position of power who, then is just being pushy, trying to get people to go beyond where they're comfortable. And that is something that has since, and it did take Method a decent bit of time, like a few days from when this actually first happened, to, put Sasha on, on sort of the unpaid leave, pending some form of investigation into what he was actually doing there. But yes, it does seem like from those two accounts, he was acting in an improper manner. And he was the co-CEO, right? So he was half of the top of Method, which is, of course, him and Scott McMillan. Of course, Method Sko, who you'll probably know as the main face of that organization. Now, as for where Method is going, it's quite tricky. And one thing I would like to say, Preach is was a lot more involved in Method because he did casting there, and you should probably check out his response. I don't know if he's putting it on YouTube, but there is a Twitch clip about 16 minutes long of Preach talking about that. So yeah, there's the stuff with Sasha, there's the stuff with Josh. As for Method as an organization, I mean, their players are all just dropping, right? Like Sienna, Sienna, Asfand, just a whole bunch have dropped from the organization, and sponsors like Corsair, who I imagine will have been a major one, have also dropped. So, and then even teams, I think half of their American, is it PvP or MDI? But one of those teams is dropped all Method branding. Loads of Method players who have not said they are leaving the org have said that they're dropping all Method branding from their Twitters and their streams until basically it's worked out what the hell is going on. Which, I mean, I think that's the right thing to do. And certainly, I would hope that it is the case, truly, that the rank and file people, that the vast majority of people who were just contractors, right, and wouldn't really have known the sheer extent of this stuff, in the same way that management would have, that they just did not know, and that they, in some ways are extremely betrayed, right, by the fact that they signed on with this organization that they thought was above board with leadership, they were being responsible, were being good leaders, but then obviously, it turns out that wasn't really as true as they thought, in a way that then hurts them in terms of their livelihood. So that obviously does suck for them as well. So that's that situation. There then is another one that is, I guess, a little bit closer to home for me because I've met the guy multiple times, been in his podcast multiple times. But there's an allegation against Bay, essentially of, I guess, would it be molestation, right? Inappropriate touching of the, of the genital area when in a bed with somebody, when it was a bunch of people who were all sort of bunking together in a hotel for BlizzCon, and that's a situation where I think he reached out to apologize to the person, but had not actually done so in the years, sort of preceding this, which is a bit weird because surely if that happened, you would apologize immediately and not just when, there's a wave of those things happening again. And then that ended up going public, and it seems like that does, has actually happened. And, that's a situation where obviously not going to be working with him anymore in the same way that with Method. I've never worked with him in the past. I would not have been against working with them because from my perspective, they were an interesting organization who seemed to be this kind of like, weird indie esports org or something like that. But obviously, no, right? Obviously, I will not be working with Method in the future. So yeah, that's that stuff with those two situations. Three, I guess, if you count Sasha as well. There's also the situation with Swifty, and on that one, I don't really know what's going on because there was an initial post against him. Blizzard dropped him from his NPC insert in Ashran, but then there's been a bunch of people calling the accuser into question, and it's just this messy situation, and it's just a thing like that where I don't want to. I don't know. I think it would be irresponsible for me to, claim that I know what's going on there or can, give you some sort of hard, you should think in this way or that way. I just don't know. Whereas with the Method thing, it's even if Josh was exonerated, the point is that at the time, Method didn't know that, did not put him in leave, did not, act in the way that a company should act in a situation like that. So that's... Man, yeah, that's what's up. Obviously, no WoW news today. The point is just being to actually talk about this because it's something serious that has happened in our community. And I suppose there's some introspection that is needed, right? Because, if it does turn out, right, that, Josh actually is guilty of most of the things that people are saying, then that would have been sort of enabled, right, by his, I suppose what we could say is his humor. Now, it might actually turn out that wasn't even humor, but this persona where everything was ironic, right? And, it was funny and it was very gifable and shareable and people would be, doing compilations of, oh yeah, here's Josh and his, Josh and this girl, part 1 and part 2, or, the thing with, I think it was a knife and some of the funny graphs that he did where, a lot of people were like, oh, haha, funny, edgy humor. But then it kind of turned out that maybe people should have been more suspicious and maybe should have, I guess, tried to think more analytically about that and just, maybe by communities not being as not being critical in some of those things, it can maybe enable bad actors to actually sort of slither into where we're all just trying to have fun and to do bad things, right? And it seems like that could have happened. So certainly there's a lot of thinking to be done there, right? I guess there's aspects of Twitch culture and stuff where, it's maybe a bit rough. Certainly one thing that comes into my mind is, and this is entirely separate from that to be extremely clear, but, Asmongold coming to terms with the fan base that he had created, or, had found him, I suppose, and how he has tried over time to change the image of his stream and of the people that are there. And that's been a really interesting sort of thing of a guy being really introspective and kind of thinking about where he is in the community, what he's doing, what he's thinking, and I guess being a bit more, just being a bit more sort of switched on, right? Actually thinking about those things actively. And I think that's maybe the journey that most of us need to not go on, but just that's the sort of stuff we need to think about a little bit more. So yeah, that's I guess that's what's going on, right? We're in a situation now, where I guess this stuff I've got to think about, right? We have a bunch of people working for us across the game studio, across YouTube. YouTube 6 people, including me, and then game development. I mean, it's between 4 and 5 core staff, but plus contractors as well. And I want that to grow, right? I want that to grow. I want there to be a situation. I don't know, maybe we're like a mini Rooster Teeth. Very mini. I don't think there's any hope we could be something like that. But, as that headcount increases, you've got to start being realistic about, if you get 50 people in a room, percentages, even if something's a 1% chance, that still means in a group of 100 people, that unlikely thing is going to, could be there in one person, and it would be reasonable to expect that, right? And that's just the sort of stuff you've got to think about. And what I'd say there is, thinking about culture is really important, right? Whenever you're hiring, I mean, first of all, hiring is the most important thing you can do as a company because, when you're hiring, you're trying to hire people to replace you in what you're doing that are better at what you're doing than what you do. That's what you're trying to do. That's one of the reasons why hiring is the most important thing. But hiring badly is one of the worst things you can do because you're going to decrease the quality of your work and cause all those problems. But if you hire a bad personality fit or a bad culture fit, that actually erodes the foundation of your business and can be extremely damaging. And, I think when we are in this area of, growth, right? Relentless growth. We just got to go fast. it's just there's chances for things to go wrong there and for the proper things to not be done. And it maybe is a case where Method were just in this position where I don't claim to know what they were thinking at the time, but like, man, one of your players has these accusations going on. It really does seem like the leadership types actually did know about it. I mean, how do you not, right? Like, was that a case of just, we can't lose our star healer? It couldn't have been that. Was it, how did that actually happen? What was going on? Clearly, though, some bizarre failing of leadership. Man, I don't know. It's really bad, but basically that's what's going on there. So, I think it's something that's important to talk about. There will be regularly scheduled, content that is there to bring you joy and bring you entertainment and talk about things that we're, super passionate about in the game, like the lore. There's a great Terralion video coming up pretty soon as well, which I think you'll enjoy. But yeah, there you go. That's the situation. That's my thoughts on it currently. Keep the old brain switched on, have a look at things, think about them when they happen, I suppose, and just, everyone's got to be a little bit careful. And, I don't know how to bring this one to a tight conclusion. There you go. Let me know what you think. Thank you for listening in, if you've been interested in this, and I will see you next time.